past the creaky metal gates, through the fog-enveloped graveyard, you find yourself on the rickety old porch of a long-forgotten home. Beyond the threshold sits a man obsessed, a tortured soul, cursed to discover all about the Southern California haunt community and beyond. You have now entered the domain of the Creepcast with Rick Creeper. You're listening to the Creepcast.
How are we doing, sir?
I'm doing well today. Glad to be here.
I have not seen you since November of last year.
It would be, yeah.
How's life?
Busy.
I kind of figured a man that has two businesses and then also is a venue supervisor in Knott, so you're kind of busy.
And don't forget 3 kids,
a life,
and a German short hair pointer. I'm busy.
And then you like to do your excursions in the Jeep and
Yeah, I do.
and everything else. I think mountain climbing. What else do we do?
I'm an explorer.
Explorer. There we go. You're like a modern day Indiana Jones.
Close.
I've never met a man that looked like a live action Dick Tracy character. I mean, I feel bad I didn't wear a suit today. I'm actually wearing my suit. You ever been to the Magic Lamp in Rancho Cucamonga?
No, I haven't. I've heard of it, though.
So we're having dinner tomorrow there. Mm-hmm. My parents used to go there in the 80s. Apparently, they just hit their 78th anniversary. Not my parents, the restaurant, but they have a strict dress code.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so I have to pick. I actually did pick up the suit, the 1 or 2 suits I own that I never wear, so I'm actually wearing a suit tomorrow.
I have a theory on clothing. It's the respect that you give to the activity that you're participating in.
It makes sense. I'm going to ask you to have to probably fix my tie before you leave today. So
we can do that.
There's a story behind that.
By the way, how many ties have I tied during Not Scary Farm?
You tied my tie at least 3-4 times a week. Yeah. That's if whoever does the cleaning did not undo the knot in the tie. So. Yeah. Hey guys, we're back at it. This is Rick Creeper from the Creepcast podcast. I'm here with Jacob Caputo, the man behind Haunted Whittier Ghost Tours, the owner and operator of Alexander & Sons, where you could get World War I and World War II helmets and field gear restoration done. Also, venue supervisor for Not Scary Farm. That's a pretty big handle. So
yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, we've had conversations on and off stage, just private and I guess public knowledge, I guess. But you seem to have a very vast knowledge of history, hence the 2 businesses. Where did it come from and how did that come to be? Was it education, just something you were interested as a young man? Or?
That's a great question. And I wish I could give you a legitimate answer. The closest that I can come is since a kid, I've been fascinated with it. As a very young child, I was asking for books about the American Civil War, World War I, World War II. I remember my grandfather, he served in World War II. He had lots of friends that were veterans, and I was the one that was sitting around asking them questions. I have a family that came from, they were ethnic Germans from Lithuania. And as a little kid, we would go to their house and I would listen to them talk about the war and some horrible experiences that they went through at the tail end. And probably being around people like that probably lit the fire for my interest in history.
So just being around the older generation, hearing the stories and just piqued your interest. How old do you think you were when you started noticing this?
Probably 7 or 8 years old.
Wow, very formative years. Okay.
Yeah. We, both of us, we're the similar generation. Mm-hmm. We are uniquely positioned because we did get to know people that saw the 1920s, the 30s, the 40s, even maybe a little bit before that. So we did, we were in a position to be able to hear their stories, and I certainly was, and shaped my personality.
My dad would tell me stories. He hated the way our generation dressed in the 90s. He hated it. He hated the fact that wear hats. You'd always tell me, don't wear hats indoors. Mm-hmm. Don't wear hats while you drive. He's like, when he was a kid, that he would see men wear suits and hats, women wearing gloves and dresses, very formal, going to the theater.
Absolutely.
He says he never wore sneakers. Mm-hmm. Not until he was older. He said the only time we wore sneakers as kids was in gym class.
Yeah.
I'm like, so what were you, Fred Astaire, wearing wingtips all the time, Dad? He's like, no, I think my dad, to the day he died, he never wore denim, never wore jeans, always in slacks.
Those were work clothes.
Yeah.
You wore those when you were working, and then when you were done with the job, you took them off and you put on something more appropriate.
He was upset one Christmas we got him Docker slacks because they said Levi's. I'm like, Dad, they're not. They're.
But in his mind,
they were denim. So, did you read a lot of books as a young man?
Yeah.
So,
did.
what kind of books were you reading?
Do you know? I obviously enjoy novels. I read a lot of the greats. Hemingway. I very much like Hemingway. I like Fitzgerald. Very much like Steinbeck. Huge Steinbeck fan.
Okay.
But I also read, if you looked at my library right now, it's a lot of just history books about various eras and time frames. Recently, I was focused on the 18th century. Finished a 700-page book on the French and Indian War, which I found interesting because it kind of opens up this country being founded.
Makes sense. My grandfather had in his den, he had a giant screen TV, of course, in the 80s. And he just had tons of books, and like Time Life books. I'd read everything, Encyclopedia Britannicas. Also, there was, I think, the Time Life books. There was like, Lore of the Werewolf or Vampires or, whatever. But I was always out in my head buried in books or watching like old horror movies. That was my thing. Are you formally educated? College?
Yeah, I am. I have a degree in international business with a concentration in Portuguese, and my life has taken a different tact. Obviously, I own two businesses, so the degree in business did help.
Okay.
I saw myself in a very different place back when I was going to college. I kind of saw myself working in big companies overseas. Really wanted to go to Africa and work in Angola. They speak Portuguese there. They had an oil industry that was starting to kind of come online, and I thought that would have been interesting, and life took a different turn.
I was going to ask why Portuguese, and you explained why. Okay. It's just funny how you figured, like, I obviously went to college for sports, but then eventually wanted to get into electronic engineering because I came out of the electrical field. Not realizing it has the most math requirement, which is not my forte, so hence why I never finished college. But
I understand.
Where'd you go to college?
Cal State Fullerton. That's
really?
Where my degree is from, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Beyond college, were you still developing your passion in history? Besides the studies that were required, were you just diving deep on your own in world and, U.S. history?
That's a great question. So when I was in college, I will be honest, I did not particularly enjoy what I was doing.
Okay.
I felt like I had made a choice and I needed to finish, but in my spare time, here I'm in class, we're getting ready to start lecture, and I'm reading a book about the fall of Berlin in 1945.
Wow.
And every spare moment I would be delving into some historic subject, and I realized at some point the direction that I was going in was probably not going to make me happy. But, I'd made a decision I was going to follow through, and I got laid off from the company I was working for, the Walt Disney Company, in 2008, and I had been dabbling in restoring helmets. It was a hobby. And my wife turned to me and she said, "Here is your opportunity. Why don't we make a goal? You turn this into a business in 2 years." And I did it.
Interesting. So you've had the business since, a hobby that you're very passionate about it. I could tell the way you speak about it, the way your knowledge of history, I could tell it does feel like work, but if you're working for yourself and you do something you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like work.
It's true. Now, I always warn anybody that says that, you are correct. It is still a job.
It's still a job, yeah.
And there are times that I do have to, because I work for myself, I'm very hard on myself. I don't like to take nights off, days off, and whatnot. And there are times I have to remind myself, no, it's okay to take a couple of days off because my work gets better when I do that.
The problem with craftsmanship, I have a tendency, I came from the trades and I do maintenance now and so forth. But I have a tendency to struggle with the smallest imperfections. Only I would notice. because you're so laser focused on things. Do you ever have that habit?
I do, and it's funny that you mention that because there are things that I do that unless you take the helmet apart or if you know where to look, you will never see. And sometimes I ask myself, like, why do I do this? And it was really funny. I put these issue stamps and marks that would have been used in the era that only I kind of know about. And I get a kick out of when somebody will call me up because they took the liner out of the helmet or they modified it some way. They're like, I can't believe you knew about those. I said, yeah. I said, I know that nobody ever sees them. Mm-hmm. I feel like they have to be there.
See, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to purchase a helmet. And I'm going to look for the smallest imperfections, just to point them out to you. So
please do.
It'd be worth the $500. So
there you are. Yeah. But this is why you pay $500.
That's why you pay $500 for your work. Yeah, I get it. You know, just you take pride. And when I worked in the trades, I had a foreman. He would always tell me, you want to see it to completion, even if it takes an extra 15, 20 minutes over. He's like, because you might be the guy coming back having to fix it or service it.
Absolutely.
So that was always me. But another saying he would tell me, quit tomorrow. I get frustrated stuff. And I'm like, I had to do this job. The hell was it or whatever. He's like, just quit tomorrow. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Pretty much tell me to go home and sleep on it. You know, get a night's rest and come back. You know, tomorrow's a new day. So that's funny how that works. How did the world of history, and this is referring to your other business, crossover to the spiritual or the ghost realm? I mean, because when I did your tour about a year ago, there was a lot of historical facts, but also it tied into the, I guess, the ghost stories. How do those two worlds cross?
They cross more than you think they would. And
okay.
I'm glad that you said what you did because I can see the wheels are turning. History and ghost stories are one and the same because ghost stories are a way that we remember history.
I remember you saying that in the tour.
And it is important because I tell people that I bring the dead back. I have researched a number of interesting ghost stories that are important people in the Whittier area, the community, that unless you come on my tour, you don't get to hear about them. Mm-hmm. They are forgotten history, but we kind of dig them up. And what I find fascinating is, and this is the connection to the paranormal, people approach me with stories and they may not know the history.
Okay.
And I do.
Interesting.
And suddenly I will say, well, what you're experiencing, you know, this person was here at this time, so the story makes sense. Mm-hmm. And they look at me like, okay, I get it now. So
there's actual, let's say, reference to information or facts that tie into these, let's say, their paranormal experience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
How did you always have an interest in the paranormal or just ghost stories? I know you're a history buff, but like just
since a little kid. And I remember this came from my grandmother. She grew up in a home that was built in the Civil War era in Pennsylvania. They had a ghost, and the ghost was up in the attic, and the attic was sealed, and they couldn't actually get up there, but they would hear it walking around. There was a rocking chair up there that, well, I need to back up. They would hear the creaking in the middle of the night, and it sounded like a rocking chair. They would hear something walking to that chair and sit down and then rock back and forth. But none of them had actually been in the attic because it was sealed, it was boarded up. As to why, they didn't know. I still don't know. But here's the funny part of this story. My great-grandfather, so he's this German immigrant from Lithuania. He's a tough old steel worker in Pennsylvania, an absolute good man, but typical of the Depression, heavy drinker. He came home very drunk, and the ghost started rocking the chair. He couldn't sleep. He was so angry, he got an axe. He broke through the wall where the attic was, found that rocking chair, and broke it up into 1,000,000 pieces. And they would still hear the footsteps, but the chair was gone, so the ghost couldn't rock back and forth.
That's hilarious. My grandparents, I mean, they came from Mexico originally. They lived in the city of Montebello, right on the border of City of Commerce in East LA. They lived in a neighborhood that their house was, I want to say, mid-1920s.
Okay. so old.
Old, typical, Los Angeles duplex. The elongated driveway. And my grandfather was a union carpenter, worked for a fabricator. Excuse me. So on the side of the house, there was an entryway. Next to the entryway, there was a pass-through. And I didn't realize what it was until I was older. And I guess what it was for deliveries of ice and also, milk, dairy, and all that. And from Driftwood, or I forget the other dairy, local dairy. And my grandma used to put her iron in there.
Okay.
They had a creepy old grandfather's clock to go off a minute, of course. And, typical duplex is built above ground.
Yeah.
We were there, every weekend probably. But I would hear creaks in the middle of the night. I would hear noises in the workshop. I'm like, it's got to be someone else. But it's just this creepy old house, always dark and just, it was an old neighborhood too. It just, I wouldn't be surprised there was something in that house.
Yeah.
Especially the house that was that old. They lived there from, I say the late 70s to maybe late 80s. And then my grandfather retired and moved back to Mexico. And that's another story, ghost stories, this old house that they lived in there. So how old is Whittier?
Well, it's much older than most people know. The city was established as a township in 1887. So that, for Southern California, that's an old town. There were people there before that, though. There were Mexican and Spanish ranches. There were always people in the area. The Nieto family, the Pico family, the Workman family, they all operated ranches there, going back into the Spanish era. So people showed up there in the early 1800s. And then obviously before that, there were Tonga Native Americans that were in the area. I always tell people on my tour, yes, the Tongva were there, and they certainly would have called it home, but they never stayed very long because there wasn't a lot of water in Whittier.
Mm-hmm.
So they generally, their villages stayed next to the San Gabriel River, and maybe they would venture into what today we call Whittier for hunting purposes or other reasons, but living there long-term was difficult.
I grew up on the other side of the hill. I grew up in the La Puente area, Hacienda Heights, so we were always familiar with the area.
You're next door.
Pretty much next door. For anyone who's not local, Whittier would be considered a small suburb right outside LA Basin area.
Yeah, it's part of Los Angeles.
Part of Los Angeles here. What is it? Why is it I found it so interesting? I've always been attracted to the area. I love the homes there. The charm of uptown off Greenleaf.
Absolutely.
Not to also mention, there's also been a handful of films and TV shows filmed there.
More than a handful. We are a popular place to film.
I know it's a horrible movie. The Dolph Lundgren, Masters of the Universe,
Yes.
The Wonder Years from the 80s. On your ghost tour, you mentioned the house from Hocus Pocus.
Focus.
What else am I missing?
Disturbia?
Disturbia, really?
Yeah, the Disturbia house is on Painter.
Okay, Painter's right there off of by Greenleaf. Okay.
Yeah, you've probably driven by the house and not realized.
I had no idea.
One of the houses that's on my tour, they filmed. I don't really talk about this on my tour because it's not a popular movie, but Liar Liar with Amanda Bynes, her house is in that. In fact, if you watch the movie, you can see the inside of a Whittier house. Also, more recently, The Fableman about Steven Spielberg's life.
Interesting.
Part of that was filmed in Whittier. Back to the Future is the big one that we're known for. Whittier High School is Marty McFly's high school.
Is it? You got to be kidding me. I had no idea.
Go ahead and Google it because you will see lots of pictures of Marty and his father as well walking in front of the Whittier High School. And yeah, that is.
So the scene from the Twin Pines Mall was the Point Hills Mall, where as a kid, we used to ride our bikes to the arcade there. Mm-hmm. It's literally off Azusa and Pepperbrook. I used to go trick-or-treating in that neighborhood. We heard buzz of something going on there. It was literally the parking lot of the J.C. Penney's, and right after they were done there, I think Circus Barnum and Bailey might have showed up and had their circus in the parking lot. Another movie that was filmed there locally was this horrible alien movie called Mac and Me.
I remember Mac and Me. Yeah, it's
terrible.
80s classic. Right?
But why Whittier? Why is it the charm? Is it the aesthetic of the downtown? Is it the homes? Why is it?
It's all of the above.
Okay.
We have a lot of old homes that really haven't changed much since the 1920s, 30s, even into the 50s. I think it is a quiet community.
Mm-hmm.
They can shut streets down and really nobody bothers them.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think more than anything else, it's the vintage architecture.
I dig it. There's the Village Cinema.
Yeah. We talk about it on my tour.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that. It just I've looked at homes. The problem is I work here in Irvine, not too far from
Bit
here.
of a drive.
So it put me out. Unless we found our dream home, and typical me, I'm looking at an old Craftsman home, and just I don't have.
They have a lot of them.
Maybe one day I'll have a second home. We'll see. So how did you start the Haunted Whittier Ghost Tours? What brought that to fruition?
So the story goes back to the early 2000s, and I was on vacation in the Florida Keys. We were in Key West, which, if you have not been there, also a wonderful older community, lots of homes from the Civil War era up into the 20s and 30s. Beautiful Victorians. They really haven't changed the community a whole lot. And we were looking for something to do, and there was a ghost tour that was offered, and we took it. Very, very impressed. And at the time, I wasn't living in Whittier, but in the back of my mind, I thought, you know what? Something like this would succeed in Whittier, because we also have this vintage charm. But I was busy. I put it in the back of my head and didn't think about it again until one day, during the middle of COVID, I'm driving back from the beach with my son, and something popped into the back of my mind, and it was, you have time. People are looking for outdoor activities. Mm-hmm. It's time to build that ghost tour. And they went from there.
Did you already, obviously, you're a history buff. Did you already have that knowledge?
Do you know, I had a lot of knowledge, but I didn't have that many stories, because I always tell people, there are people that will approach me that ask, hey, I'd like to do one in my town. And I say, and we usually, sometimes they'll say, so should I make stories up? I'm like, no, don't do that.
No.
Do not do that. You will ruin your tour. And it is as tempting as it is, the stories will come to you mm-hmm. if you make yourself available, which I did. I started by just walking the route that I wanted to use for the tour. And talking to people in the neighborhood. I reached out to real estate agents. I reached out to the curator of the Whittier Museum. There are people out there, and if they don't know, they know somebody. Mm-hmm. Say, hey, this person told me this story and had this experience. And after a while, I started getting cold calls. I got cold calls from people on the East Coast that grew up in Whittier in the 50s and 60s and 70s and said, hey, this is something happened to me, or this happened to my friend. And after a while, and that's the cool thing about the tour, it's grown. If you had come on it back in 2020, you would have heard a limited version of the one that you did. But today it's more complex, more stories. I can change things up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I've created several more routes, not just the one that you attended.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, so you have the tour that goes through Uptown, mm-hmm. and then you have the museum as well.
We do the museum, and we are working on, I actually need to back up. So we do one out of a restaurant called 6740, which is on Greenleaf. And that's similar to the one that you did. It's just in a different restaurant. The one that we did back then closed. And the second tour, we start in the Central Park, and we walk into the historic district. So some of the stories are the same, but it's an elongated tour. And then the museum, and we're working on another one right now, and this is going to be in the last Mexican governor of California. His name was Pio Pico, and his house is in Whittier, and we will be doing a tour inside that mansion.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, have they done tours, just general tours there in the past?
Oh, yes, they have.
I think, again, I grew up in Hacienda Heights. I think we did a elementary tour to his home.
I most guarantee you did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. That was a very common thing with elementary school kids in the area, Hacienda Heights, La Mirada, Whittier, to go to Pio Pico's home, because it is such a historic structure.
And for those who do attend the ghost tour, Jacob wears pretty cool suits. Very, very, very period accurate. I dig it. I dig the clothes.
Thank you.
How about could you share some personal experiences as far as like paranormal activity?
Oh boy, I get asked that a lot, and I have had things happen that I don't really have a good explanation for. And one particular tour, it was a very warm night. It was probably about 90 degrees, and this is in August. And I'm standing in front of this Victorian home, and I knew that it was empty because I knew the owner and they were not there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's every time I said the name of the person that built it, the whole tour heard this bell ring.
That is creepy.
Don't know where it came from. I turned to somebody in the tour and I said, I don't see any little kids hiding over there ringing a bell at us or anything like
Interesting.
that. But I think there's something to it.
You mentioned a story on the tour I went, that I attended. I think it was a story at the Whittier Museum. Mm-hmm. Something fell off a shelf. I think it was a clock or.
So actually, this is a scary story because this was one of those things where everybody was there when it happened and everybody was looking at it when it happened. They have a room that we call the chapel room. It is situated to look like a 19th century church. And so the whole tour, everybody sits on pews and I'm in front and we talk about a murder story. It's not necessarily a paranormal story. It's just about a young boy that was murdered back in the 1930s. And it is a unfortunate story because his murder has never really been solved. There's some speculation on who did it, but he's just one of those forgotten characters that did not get justice. And at the time that he was murdered, he was in the old Fred C. Nellis, I'll call it an asylum for boys, but it wasn't for crazy boys, it was for criminals. And the reason that I would call it an asylum is because they were hoping to reform these boys. The idea was that they would teach them skills where they could improve their lives, and once they left the prison, they would live a normal life. At any rate, we have a sign that hung over the area that he was incarcerated. It is an original wooden sign from the era. It's one that he would have seen and would have been familiar with. And as soon as I talked about the story where he was murdered and that justice was not served, the sign flew off the wall. And when I say flew off the wall, I don't mean that it dropped off the wall and hit the ground.
It had projected.
It
launched. And
it's a big sign. It is a big... For that to happen, you would have to have somebody grab it and throw it. It launched about 4 feet, slammed on the ground. Thank goodness it didn't break. And everybody just looked at me, and I looked back, and I got nothing. And everybody agreed that we had just experienced something.
And the tour is lights out, correct?
Oh yeah,
it's
pitch black.
Pitch black. That is. I do want to attend the Whittier Museum tour eventually.
Now, I will tell you one other funny story because ghosts like to knock things over, I guess. So there's another room, and we call it the barn. It's set up to look like a 19th century barn. And I had a special guest on the tour that night. It was one of the curators that was wishing for me to extend a tour to a facility that she manages. And I'm telling the story, and as soon as I get to the part where the unfortunate person lost their life savings and their money, and it's a very tragic story about how this man lost everything. There was a big piece of farming equipment that falls over, and this is something that you would have to grab and really push hard. It just falls over by itself. Tour was over, and this woman comes up to me, and she says, "How did you do it?"
How'd you do it?
And I said, "I did not." And she said, "No.
You timed that.
I was watching it, and it just fell over." She's like, "You did something." And I said, "I would tell you if I had, I promise." I said, "I'm not that good." And her face went white. And she said, "Okay, well, maybe."
Maybe. Besides the museum, what are the routes that your tours consist of?
So we start at 6740 on Greenleaf, and then we walk through the alleyway. We walk partially down Greenleaf, and then we finish the tour circling Central Park. Here. The other tour that we do, we actually start in the park, and we walk back into the historic district, and we go down Bailey, we come down off of Friends, and it's just a longer tour. Mm-hmm. We look at more of the Victorian homes and some of the craftsmen that are in the area.
So when we finished your tour, we hung out, we talked for a little bit, then we parted ways. You went your way, myself and Krista went back the way we came. We ended up going to the alley.
That is haunted.
You told this story, and people have had experiences of because I guess a lot of carriage traffic, and they would hear the
horses.
I don't know if it was my mind just playing tricks on me, but I could have sworn it sounded like the traffic of horses, and I was like, no, it can't be. But definitely a not unsettling, but an energy of a presence there.
So I have had now. That was an early story that I collected about the horses and the clip-clopping of the hooves.
Yes.
And I heard it from a waiter, and he said, I walked back to the parking lot after my shift is over. He would usually end about 1 a.m. And he said to the point where he started running because he thought it was chasing him. And he turns around and there's nothing there.
Wow.
Okay, this is a great story. 6 months later, I get a phone call. Female waiter. Very similar experience. So I'm like, okay, now I have 2. I like to have 3 before I share it.
Okay.
Because people make stuff up. I have now heard from at least 20 different people that have experienced.
You're serious.
Either the sound of horses, the clip-clopping of hooves, even neighs, whinnies. So there's something to it. Now, I found a picture in the Whittier archives of undertakers in horse-drawn hearses moving corpses down Greenleaf back in the 19th century, in the earliest 20th centuries. Whether that's what those are, or it's the deliveries because they would have delivered stuff to the supplies to the stores back in the 19th and into the 20th century with horses. So maybe that's what it is. That part I can't explain. However, we do know that horses were the main mode of transportation in that era, so apparently they're still doing it.
That's a lot of stories to confirm that. I wouldn't be surprised. And again, I thought I heard the click clack from horses, and I don't know if it was just my mind playing tricks on me, or I don't know.
I walk through that alleyway a lot. I have not yet heard it, but I always will stop and just kind of listen. One of the women that shared this experience with me, her experience was when she was walking, she heard it, and then she stopped. And then she started to walk again, and then she would hear it as if it was following her. So it's very similar. But The cool thing is that with every one of the tales that I've heard about this, these are people that do not know each other.
Interesting. So stories are not being shared.
Yes, from different restaurants, different places of employment. And I do look for that because if they're all coming from one restaurant, it's like, okay, this is getting shared around.
Right.
And now sometimes people think they hear things that they don't. Or once they hear an experience, okay, now I'm creeped out walking down the alley. But when I know for sure they do not know people, then you have a story. You
mentioned a pathway for undertakers. I did notice you posted something recently on social media. You were wearing an undertaker outfit.
Yes.
Are we preparing for something?
So that is going to be the clothing that I will be wearing at the Pio Pico's mansion once that tour goes live in October.
Perfect.
And it is a 19th century building, so I did quite a bit of research on...
Not surprised.
Yes. I did quite a bit of research on what would be historically accurate for that era. One of the things that I feel that sets my tour apart from some of the other tours is I very much research the clothing of the era. So when you see me standing on the steps of either a 19th century or early 20th century church or over at Pio Pico's mansion, I will be dressed and wearing clothing of that era that is accurate and well researched. One of the things on ghost tours that I just hate is when the guide doesn't get into it. And there was a tour I went on, I won't say where it was, but the guy shows up in a polo. And I'm just like, do you even want to be here?
It's like, can you just maybe
just try? There was another tour I saw that was I don't want to say where it was because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but the guy showed up, unbuttoned vest, a shirt where he didn't have the tie clasped correctly, and he looked like kind of a cheap magician. And it's like, I don't like to insult people, but you need to create a presence for storytelling.
I totally agree with you.
And hopefully I do that. Hopefully when people hear me and they look at me, because the thing is, you're on stage for over an hour and a half, and they're looking at you the whole time.
Yeah.
You have to create that. You let them step back and say, okay, my storyteller is really into it.
Speaking of your attire, you definitely have a sense of style, and it's very period accurate.
Thank you.
Has it always been something that you've always carried? Is it something you picked up at an early age or at a certain age? Even at Knott's, you came dressed sharp all the time. I'm like, wow. And I think I've seen you wear jeans once, which were period accurate, and a t-shirt that was tucked in. And you had, I think, sneakers. But again, it was very, I'm like, wow, even when he's casual, it's still accurate. So,
just dress has always been important to me, even at a young age. When I was in high school, my early 20s, I was a surfer, and I wore shorts and t-shirts and pretty much everywhere. But as I've gotten older and as I've kind of become more of a, I guess, eccentric business professional, dress has become very, very important to me. And even at Knott's, even though it's not a place where I'm wearing vintage clothing or anything like that, I like to put on it is important that I dress well because I'm talking to guests and I want them to know that I take them seriously and their concerns. And also, I think the way it presents to the people that work for me, they see me as a refined manager.
I loved it that you'd come check in with us, myself and Jeffrey Koch, my buddy. And you're like, hey, are you guys available for pre-scare? Or, hey, and you, Jeff, will go down rabbit holes. And he's like, hey, I like that jacket. And you tell him. I'm like, did you want us to work pre-scare, or are you guys going to talk jackets? Yeah, I think because there was you had patches on your elbow, and there was some type of padding on the shoulder, which was meant for hunting.
Yeah, I've got some stuff like that.
And then you, Jeff, were going on these rabbit holes. He's like, where can I get that? And then I was just like, do you want us to do pre-scare, or did you want us to just go to the venue? It's like, I love that. So yeah, I've always appreciated the way you've dressed. Again, the only time I wore ties was either for a job interview or for a formal event, and I don't know how to tie a tie.
That's okay.
So yes, everyone, I would have Jacob tie my tie majority of the time for the last 3 seasons as the character I play in Gordon 20. So,
it actually made my day because not just you, but all the other characters that wore ties would always come to me to tie them, and I felt there was like an intimate connection when I'm allowed to do that because I want them to look their best, and I think they come to me because I think they could figure it out on the internet on their own, but they come to me because they know when the tie is tied, it will look proper and correct.
Thank you.
And if it gives them a little confidence when they go out there, I'm glad it did.
Not only he would fix our tie, but he would fix the proper type of knot, I guess.
Oh yes.
And then with kind of a quick little history lesson of the tie, of the knot. So he's like, oh, this is the Windsor knot and so forth.
Yeah, we talked about that. I usually, with you, we usually did a 4-in-hand because that was the proper tie for the early 20s.
Jacob also gave me, it can be considered a tie clip. Yeah. I remember, hey, I got something for you. And it was so cool. You handed it to me. It's in my keepsakes from the zone.
That makes me happy.
So I was just like, and I make sure I wear it every night. I love seeing pictures that I'm wearing it. So I was like, hey, thank you, sir.
I'm just glad you enjoyed it.
So thank you so much. Not only for the tie clip, but for everything you did for me. And we'll talk about that. Besides the tour additions, anything else new this year?
Well, the biggest news for me is the extension of the tour over at Pio Pico's Mansion, and that's literally we started on Monday, where I was out there talking to
I saw
the
that.
facilities, walking around, taking pictures and whatnot. So that's a big deal for me.
Looking forward to. I'm definitely going to make some time. If not in October, definitely November.
Yeah, we're the next museum tour is going to be on the 13th of September, and that's right before the museum closes. So we'd love to have your listeners come and check
Cool.
that out.
Quick story before we take a break. So I used to live in the historical district in the French Park Historical District in downtown Santa Ana. Right in the heart of it. I had a huge porch in my home. I'm sitting there. Knowing me, I'm probably drinking bourbon out of a coffee mug and just taking in the night. And I see all these people walking through the neighborhood. Some with flashlights, some with the camera lights on their cell phone. I'm like, what's going on? It was the local tour that does Santa Ana. I was like, well, you're in my neighborhood. I might as well join you. And I just stepped off the porch and went, hey, how's it going? But I had no idea they did the tour. It starts at
It's the courthouse, isn't it?
I believe it starts at the courthouse. What's it called? Oh my God. It's literally on the other side of Main Street, but they end up in the French Park and they do their tour. And then I just thought that was a funny story, but
that is funny.
I think we're at a stopping point. So We're going to take a break, guys. Again, this is episode 31 with Jacob Caputo, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Creepcast.
Don't you dare try to escape. The Creepcast with Rick Creeper shall return.
Hey guys, this is Rick Creeper 11 again. Just want to say thank you so much for being supportive of the podcast since its inception. Is that the word? Since 2019, for every episode when I was at Sinister Point, Dark Harbor, Midsummer Scream, and down at the Scary Farm. You're the reason why I do this. You're the reason why I put in the time, the effort, and the labor, because if I could create something for you that's going to distract you for a minute or make your ride, enjoyable the way to work or home, or just have you check out from all the BS that's going on in the world, it's all worthwhile. So thank you again to all the supporters. Thank you for the listeners out there. Thank you for all the fans, the guests, that Scary Farm, everyone who's been involved somehow, indirectly or directly, everything I've done. You're the reason why I did it. And it feels good to be back. And yeah, man.
What does a mime look like when he's having sex anyway? Probably like, I'm a mime. I'm a mime.
Where do you think you're going? There is no escape from the Creepcast with Rick Creeper.
You're listening to the Creepcast.
All right, everybody, we're back at it here with Jacob Caputo, handsome devil and the owner and operator behind the Haunted Whittier Ghost Tours. So let's segue to your second business. We're talking Alexander and Sons. What was the inspiration behind that? How did you get that going?
So I started restoring helmets out of just an interest in history. There's a lot of helmets from really World War I, World War II, up into Vietnam that have just not been taken care of. They're no longer valuable as far as being a historic relic because they've been repainted or people messed with them for different reasons. And, I guess I just have an eye of an artist, and I said, what would it take to bring these back to what they would have looked like during the war? And so I started just doing that for fun, and I wasn't very good at it, but, I just kept trying. And when I lost my job at Disney in 2008, I mentioned this earlier, my wife said, why don't you take 2 years to figure this business out and see what happens, get a website and, go all in. And I did, and I made it through the 2 years, and I'm still doing it now, and I love it. And the business keeps growing.
Prior to the business and you dabble into that side of the industry, did you have a X amount of knowledge of the helmets, what they look like, the accuracy, the color schemes?
All self-taught. And yes, that is a very complicated question. It is so much research to learn about military paint codes. There are some books on it, but also you have to spend a lot of money to find the originals and look at what they look like and match the paint. And there's a lot of trial and error. And my clients want as accurate as you can get. So you're not just going out and getting a standard like gunmetal gray. It's like actually coated and issued to each piece of equipment. Well, I'll give you even a complicated example, but it's a good one. During the 1920s, the German government established paint codes. They're called RAL codes. And they've changed actually in recent years, but back in the day, there were codes for how military equipment would be painted. And I have found them, and I have duplicated them. Wow. How much time did you invest to find those actual codes? Years. I started with buying originals, spending quite a bit of money, and then taking them to paint shops and digitally matching and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that can only take you so far because you can get an accurate color that way, but the paint ages and patinas with time. Okay. So it's darker than it was when it was issued, and I have a lot of clients that will tell me I want it to look exactly the way It left the factory in 1917 or 1941, and
Wow.
that's where the paint codes come in handy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just, it just goes to show you how passionate you are, the time you invested.
I spent $100 on an original pint of German factory paint from 1941.
I hope you still have it.
I do. I didn't. It's nasty lead-based paint that probably lasts another 100 years, but it was worth buying because I needed that paint match. I needed to know exactly what it looked like when it was dry.
It just shows you how passionate you are about your business and the accuracy, and just that's what I love about you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you a or were a military man?
Do you know, grew up in a military family. My father served in the Vietnam War.
Okay.
My grandfather was in World War II. Both of them were. I never served.
Got it.
And it was one of those things where it was on my mind, and just life took a different direction.
I see what you. I mean, look where you're at now. I mean, I love where you're at.
Thank you.
Without sharing too much of the business secrets, what are your resources on finding the helmets and the components for the gear, and finding how much of this is actually like in rotation?
Do you know, it's not easy. It is really not easy. First, finding the helmets. They're out there. I find them in antique shops. I find them on eBay. People come to me and sell. I have a section on my website if you want to sell old helmets to me. So I get antique dealers that they don't always know enough of what they have. They say, I've got a pile of helmets right here, and are you interested in them? And I'll take a look. I've made drives to downtown Hollywood because somebody found a bunch in a basement, and they're probably props from a film or something that ended up in Hollywood, but they're actually World War II helmets. They just were repainted a number of times for films, and
wow.
Then we'll make deals. I bought. There was a company that was going out of business. And they had a huge stack of American World War I helmets, had 50 of them. And they had been used in movies. And they were completely ruined as far as the paint went. But the shells were still good. So I made an offer, and that was the end of it.
I heard they were used for Kelly's Heroes. No one's going to get that reference besides us two.
Absolutely.
My dad, that's where history has always been, I always loved history, especially anything related to like war history or just American U.S. history. But my dad, I get it from my dad. The old war, Battle of the Bulge, and A Bridge Too Far, and
it's a great film.
What else? Oh gosh, the big red one. That was my dad watching these films on cassette and VHS. It's just and to this day I still watch them.
They're great films.
And one that we had a mutual passion for. It was oh my god, what is it called? The Final Countdown. It's where I think a carrier from the 70s. It's with Kurt Russell. A carrier from the 70s goes back. It goes through a portal, ends up in the Pacific.
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
Before the Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor, and they have an opportunity. And they have at the time they have modern technology. They have the F-16, so they can actually stop the Japanese. Yeah. But then the portal shows up and they had to come back into the period of time. Yeah. I'll find it eventually. You're very passionate about your businesses. What do you enjoy the most about both?
Boy, that's tough. With the Ghost Tour, what I enjoy most is I like bringing history back. I like making it, this is a bad pun, but making it alive, even though it's a ghost story. But I like people. I like to see people's faces that when they hear the story, they'll maybe come up to me and say, you're making Whittier really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud to live here now. I came here from somewhere else, and I didn't really. It's just a town to me. But now, you're giving me some background. This is a neat place to live. There's cool things that happened here. So I feel successful in that way. As far as my other business, Alexander and Sons. I love the history. I love the history of World War I and World War II and in Vietnam, and I like, kind of creating that. I have a very creative mind, and, when one of the ways that I make a lot of money actually in that business is when they ask me to age the helmets to make them look like they had been in the war. And, I love to sit and kind of get, okay, what would have this helmet gone through? If it, did it get chipped against a saber or against a rifle, or, did he drop it a lot, or, if the helmet was in North Africa, there's abrasions from sand and from, lava rock and whatnot. I mean, I really try to create and kind of look at, okay,
You're creating a story.
I want to tell a story for this helmet, absolutely. And as soon as it gets into the client's hands, I want them to be able to hold it and say, okay, maybe it was there, even though they know it's not. But they can look at it on their shelf and say, yeah, there's a whole story there.
I like how you're creating a story through the creative process of aging the helmets for these clients. That's pretty cool. I like the way you did that.
I'll give you 2 examples. They're just kind of fun. I had a client, and he wanted a helmet that was worn by a particular unit in the winter during the Battle of Stalingrad. And this is a German helmet. He wanted it camouflaged with white paint. And so, I said, he told me the unit so I researched where this unit was, and they happened to come up against the Russian cavalry. And I thought, you know what? It's possible that this helmet could have been whacked with a saber because they had sabers. And so I have an original Russian saber, and I whacked it a couple of times, chipping the paint. And I never even told the client about it, but to me, it was just fun because I looked at it and I knew what it was. And that's part of the story. So when he got it and pulled it out of the box, he could see these interesting abrasions and cuts in the paint, and that's the story, and that's fun for the collector because the collectors don't always know what the helmet went through, so they kind of imagine it. So in my mind, I hoped that he would over time kind of piece together what I had done.
I hope no one was wearing it while you're...
Absolutely not. I'll say to my son, my teenage son, hey, put this on your head.
Hey, put this on your head. Don't move.
Another thing that I do with Vietnam helmets, during the Vietnam War, and as you know, Vietnam was not a popular war, especially those that were in Nam fighting. And one of the things that they would do to express their frustration was they would take pens, different types of pens, usually felt pens, and would write on their helmet covers these different, very sarcastic, sometimes profane phrases. And so that's one of the things I do with Vietnam helmets when I restore them. But I don't do it in one setting. I have seen lots of graffiti. I've done lots of research on phrases that they used. But I will leave the helmet out on my desk, and I will walk by it over several weeks. And as things come to me, I will write them down. Because that's what a soldier would have done. He wouldn't have done it most likely in one setting. Maybe he had a fight with somebody, so maybe his officer yelled at him, so he scrawled something on it reflecting that frustration. Or maybe he got a letter from home that gave him some anxiety about his girlfriend, so he wrote his girlfriend's name or crossed her name out. So I try to do things like that further tell that story.
Interesting. I love the whole process, how you come up with this stuff. It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Now, we discussed what you find most enjoyable. Now, on the opposite side of the coin, what do you find most difficult about both businesses? Or one or the other?
The ghost tour, the hardest part of it is finding the stories. And like I said, there's always the temptation to make things up. And I will sometimes look, it's like, boy, I'd love to expand here, but I don't have any stories. And so I don't do it because you have to kind of wait until you have something to go with it. So that can be, there's a temptation there, and I have to resist it.
Now, the restoration of the field gear and the helmets, what do you find the most difficult?
The most difficult is, and this is a double-edged sword, because I love my clients. I work with wonderful people. However, I have to get inside their head with what they want.
Interesting.
And conversations and emails and messages.
The worst.
There's a lot of miscommunication.
Yes.
And one of the things that I hate is when I put my heart into something and I have gone in a direction that I thought they wanted, and then they call me and said, that is not what we discussed. Can we please start over? And the answer to that is yes, we will start over.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, and sometimes that requires a prolonged phone call because I didn't understand and we need to discuss this.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be very frustrating for both of us because we both have an understanding and we both think we're right. And although I never get upset because the customer is always right, it's hard because it's like, okay, I got to strip this thing down that I just spent the last month on and figure out what I did wrong.
Remind me to never text or email you anything important. We'll just talk about it in person or on the phone.
Yeah.
No, trust me. If it's important, just give me a call.
Yeah.
Emails at work, I'm like, I can't. We do this thing at work called Teams, Microsoft Teams, where it's like an instant. I can't. I hate it with a passion.
Well, it's the devil.
Yeah.
It truly is.
I said, can you just come down to the shop and we'll talk in person? But I totally understand. Things get lost in translation with modern technology, and
Yeah.
I still feel we have to have it. I have to see the passion in your eyes, the connectivity. It's like, oh, he really wants me to focus on X, Y, and Z. So I agree with you 100%.
But it's funny because sometimes I have felt, and I have to remind myself. So when I make a mistake like that, or I have a situation like that, I will stop and think to myself, there's something here that I have to learn that will make me as a business owner and as an artist improve. And one of the best things is when I redo it and send the pictures to the client, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's like you climbed in my head. Mm-hmm. Success.
That's where the satisfaction comes in.
Absolutely.
That's where the determination, the tenacity, the hard work pays off.
Exactly.
And I see that in you. You're a very unique man.
Thank you.
No, I mean, that's a compliment. In a good way.
No. I like that. I like that. I've been called worse.
Be called worst, yeah. Alrighty. Can we talk about your Not Scary Farm experience and going from talent to a supervisory position? How did that start? When and how did it start with you?
My gosh, I don't know if I can remember that far back. It is 1995.
I was 19 years old.
Yeah, I was a young man as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that. Now, I got to back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. I always loved Not Scary Farm. Mm-hmm. My uncle, recently deceased, used to take me there as a kid. I think I started going there when I was 11, maybe 12. So that was a thing that we would do every year. And as I got into high school, continued to do it, took dates there, went with friends. And, driving down Beach Boulevard one day, and I saw they had on the marquee, we're hiring Scary Farm monsters. And I thought, well, I wonder if they would hire me. Now, it was different back then. You showed up at an appointed time. Mm-hmm. It was over at Independence Hall. That's
really?
They did it back then.
Okay.
And they had a stage there, and they would call, they would issue you all a number. They'd call your number. You were with usually, I think it was like 10 or 15 people, and they would ask you to do things, and various things. And at the end, you would file off, and there would be a person standing there telling you if you got the job or not. And I did. They sent me over to, at the time, it was called the House of Maniacs. And if you know where the old Playhouse was,
mm-hmm.
Remember the Playhouse?
Yeah.
That's where it was.
Wow.
And I was the chainsaw slayer. Now, I took that as, I get a chainsaw. This is going to be really cool. And I got over to costuming because in those days, not only did they offer you the job, but they sent you right over to costuming.
On the spot.
And then to HR to fill out your paperwork.
Interesting.
And so it was a long day. I remember I got there at like noon, and I think I left at like 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
But at any rate, show up at wardrobe, and I'm like, "Where's my chainsaw?" They're like, "Oh no, that's just the name of the role. You don't get a chainsaw."
So, what? Okay, so what exactly did you do?
So I was up in a closet with a bunch of dismembered remains, corpses, and I had to basically jump. It was like a meat locker, and I would jump out, I guess, as they came through.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It was hot up there. I remember it would get in the 90s because it was a 2-story maze.
Okay.
So the heat rose. I just remember being drenched with sweat, which I'm sure you can relate to as well, having worked hot. But a lot of fun.
You know what's funny? If I do my math and the timeline correct, we could have potentially worked the event at the same time.
Possibly. I
applied when I was 19 in 1995. My buddy told me, I think it was the paper. We went down, excuse me. We actually went to the old bungalows by the employment center.
Oh yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
And we went in, they just took our names down and social security ID. Okay, we'll call if we need you. It might have been an on-call position.
Yeah.
I did not live in the area at the time, but They took us throughout the park. We did the whole orientation and everything. And they're like, okay, when the show's going on, the hang is going on at the Calico stage, do not pay. If you're in character, do not pay attention. Just go to A to B. The shuttles are break rooms. I don't remember. Was there a werewolf theme maze that
There was. It was called the Curse of the Werewolf.
I believe that's where they're going to throw me because they're like, you're tall, we're going to make you a werewolf. I'm like, okay. I didn't live in the area, and they called me like Thursday. Can you work this weekend? I'm like, I don't even own a car. I don't know how to get there. So, but there could have.
We could have met.
Yeah. And I think I bumped into Ed Cobb. He's like, hey, I'll see you in 30 years. I'm like, who's this guy? I have no idea. I always give him and a Chopper a hard time about that.
Yeah, he was there back in the day.
Yeah.
I met Sandy, Sandy the vampire.
Yeah.
She's passed away, but she was one of the old school monsters that had been there for, forever and a day.
Mm-hmm. How long were you talent?
So I did 3 seasons of Talent. I was there, and I came back. I left for a couple of years. I was living overseas and studying in college. Didn't have time. I came back. I worked at the Inquisition. That was a kind of a torture maze, Middle Ages.
And that was over in Camp Snoopy, correct?
It was, yeah.
Yes.
And did that, and then I worked briefly as a voodoo priest in the voodoo maze.
I remember that.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I worked in the key room. Actually, it wasn't even a voodoo priest. It was a kind of a purveyor of voodoo.
Okay.
In the key room, and that was a lot of fun.
So you were talent off and on throughout the years.
Yeah, and then as I became a parent, and I was too tired, I became a blackout, and I did that for a number. And part of the reason I became a blackout was I felt that Knott's is good with monsters, but they need good blackouts.
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, I did.
Really?
For a number of years, and so I kind of became the maze dad.
I could see that.
Yeah, I was over at Doll Factory, and
Wow.
I did Pinocchio and a few others.
When did you cross over into supervisory positions?
So it's been 8 years, I think now, maybe 9. But I was working at Voodoo, and I wanted to take a step up and become one of the managers. And I was working with a decent manager at the time, and I kind of mentioned it to him, and he said, these are some of the people that you need to talk to. And I did, and I applied for the job, went through the interview process, and I got it. And I've kind of done it ever since.
What was the first maze that you managed?
They gave me Voodoo.
Okay.
And I'd already been there for 3 years. So part of a season is Talent. The rest of the seasons is Blackout. Mm-hmm. And I managed both Voodoo and Trick or Treat, if you remember that.
One of my favorite mazes.
I adored Trick or Treat.
Love Trick. Oh my gosh.
Because it was classic Halloween.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't even improve upon it. It was just beautiful classic Halloween.
It was so beautifully aesthetic.
Yeah. And the people that I had that worked for me were very passionate about the roles that they had been given. So I did that, and then the next season, I opened Pumpkin Eater.
I remember that.
And
I mean, I didn't know at the time, but I remember hearing the stories.
That is very, very happy memories for me.
Another beautiful maze.
It was really funny because a lot of the people that they gave me didn't want to be there. They felt they needed to be on streets and whatnot, but ended up having a ball. Because that maze also was classic Halloween. Mm-hmm. Classic, with the scarecrows, the pumpkins, all that other stuff. And when it ended, there was a lot of smiles.
That was
happy.
I don't necessarily get the heebie-jeebies in a lot of mazes, but that was the one that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was
loved it. Anything jack-o'-lanterns, anything, just harvesters, and anything just classic Halloween.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things people like with Halloween. They do it. People respond to it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you managed Dark Entities for a bit?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's taking me back a few years. That was 2018. That was a tough maze. Mm-hmm. That was...
I don't know why people had such a negative impression. I loved it.
So let me tell you my thoughts on it. I thought it was a great maze.
Uh-huh.
I thought there was some kind of interesting connections with aliens and Star Wars and just kind of stereotypical space, sci-fi. But I think a lot of people just didn't understand.
To me, this, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the story that I perceived. It's obviously, a horror film. It's a horror story in space.
Yes.
And the tech is based out of, it's like the first Alien movie. Mm-hmm. It's obviously, it's supposed to be like 1994, but it's filmed in 1970.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be tech based in the future, but the future is past tense, if that makes sense.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. That's how it's low tech because it's like an old horror movie, it's like the first Alien movie. It's like, we look at it now, it's just bells and whistles. It's pretty low tech.
The crew had a hard time with the roles because what they were being asked to basically, okay, you've been infected by the entity. You are slowly becoming this horrible creature, but yet there's part of you that is still in there. Like let's say if you're the doctor, you're still trying to be the doctor.
Okay.
But then the entity kind of takes over, and then you do scary stuff, and some of them found that a little bit challenging.
Okay.
But at the end, I felt like we offered a lot of scares.
So I got a question for you about that maze. We both have a fondness for lycanthropes, werewolves, particularly a certain movie, American Werewolf in London.
Great movie.
I don't know what year it was. There was a monster in there, and you hope you get where I'm going with this, who was wearing a mask from that movie. You know what scene I'm talking about? The dream sequence.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Was that you running around because I'm like, wait a minute. I know you've scared in the zones. I know you scared in the mazes. I'm like, was that Jacob in that werewolf? It's the dream sequence where they come in with they're dressed like German soldiers.
Yeah, that wasn't me.
Okay, because I saw a monster. I'm like, and he just stuck out for some reason. That monster just stuck out all these years. This is part of me working the event.
Yeah, I did scare that year.
Okay.
I did scare as actually one of the guys that worked in the maze made masks, and he made one specifically for me, and it was really scary.
I've been wanting to ask you that question. I'm like, I wonder if that was Jacob and he owns that mask.
Yeah, no, it wasn't me. It's a good story though, but I wish I could say it was me.
So from Dark Entities, we did Pumpkin Eater, we did Trick or Treat, we did Voodoo.
I went to Depths after that.
Really?
I was at the Depths in 2019.
Another beautiful maze.
Very, very aesthetically pleasing.
Beautiful maze. I was at Dark Harbor at the time.
It was a good maze because it told a very simple story. You went through the caverns, then there was the pirate ship and whatnot, and there were some people. It was really funny because I would stand at the exit because I'd like to just sit and hear what people are saying about my maze, and I'd start seeing the same people again, and again, and they would just keep going through, and I'd kind of joke with them. I'm like, there's another maze right over there, right? But this one is so cool.
I loved the Depths. All those mazes you mentioned, especially Pumpkin Eater, just all those mazes you mentioned, there's something about them. They cannot be replicated. That's all I feel.
No, that it's one of those things when they have their run and then the run is over, you have to say goodbye because they fit for a time, and then when the time is over, you can't replicate it. And I've seen over the years them try to bring mazes back, and they never quite hit that. They never lightning doesn't strike twice. That's what I'm trying to say.
Got it. What was your final maze that you managed prior to going out to the street zone?
It would have been the Depths.
So 2019.
2019.
Okay.
Yeah. And then after that, I went to Quarrying, and I have been there ever since.
How... It makes sense you got going. So when they approached you to manage this new street zone, did you have any knowledge of the concept or the theme?
So I had been warned in 2019 that there was a discussion about a new street zone that would be set in the 1920s.
It's only fitting that you got it.
Well, it was really funny because I said to the person that told me this, I said, I hope you're considering me. And he said, well, we don't even know if you'll be here next year. And it was funny that he said that because then COVID happened. And
Nobody was there next
I wasn't there the next year.
So he was right.
Yes, he was prophetic. But as soon as they started describing what they were going to be doing, I'm like, I'd like to be part of that. That's a group that... My idea was I would like to be the one that sets it on its course. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm the right person with my knowledge background.
Makes perfect sense.
And, after a year, I'm happy to let it go, but I'd like to create the infrastructure. And, I've been there for 4 seasons.
It just makes perfect sense that you were the man that was handing the reins. I remember 2021, I think I was going to work at the 17th door. Just wasn't my bag.
Yeah.
So I did some stuff for Midsummer Scream and some home haunts and some independent stuff. And then we were like, hey, let's go to Knott's. I'm like, okay. So I see this ad for the zone. I'm like, this is pretty cool, actually. And then when I was a kid, my dad, I just having fond memories of my dad, myself and my dad spending time in there. And so I think we were cutting through the Calico Rapids, and we cross over the tracks by Western, and we walk into the zone, and there's just this energy, and there's this music. I'm like, what the heck is this? And I was just like, okay, I want to work this event now. I wasn't ready at the time. I already made prior commitments. So when I applied, they're like, hey, we need people on call, but you have a lot of prior commitments, so we can't take you. I said, I'm going to be here next year. What's funny is I envisioned the character that I was going to play. It just started developing it that year. Just developed the look, everything. Had no intentions. I'm like, hey, whatever they give me, they give me. So I applied in 2022. I'm like, I'll do whatever they want. I just don't care. You know, it's just, I'm just happy to be here. And I got the role. And so the things that I envisioned the year prior, I just said, let me kind of incorporate it. And then I struggled a bit. And then you pulled me aside and we talked. And that definitely helped me out. Jenny helped me out. And I was just like, I cannot get acclimated right away. Yeah. My first year, I was like,
it's hard.
It's hard. It was technically my first street position because I was a maze monster. And then, a zone that has its own unique heartbeat. And
it does.
You have to have quick wit and be on your toes and vernacular. And I went down rabbit holes just watching the films and talking to you. But if it wasn't for yourself the last 3 years, I think I wouldn't have been as successful as I was.
You know, the role that you had is not particularly easy because you have to have the snappy comebacks. You have to have the presence. There are people that have the presence, but they don't have the comebacks, or they can't scare because you got to be able to do all three.
Yeah.
And I remember when me and, if you remember, Heather, my assistant, it was Scare School. And I don't know if you remember, I said, look, Heather's my daughter, and we're going to walk through and act like we're visiting the venue for the first time.
I think I remember this interaction.
I sent her over to take a picture with you, and you put your fist up. You said, come over here, honey. You said it in a perfect accent. But you had such a presence about you because she looked even a little scared to walk over toward you because just the look that you rolled your eyes back and you just had this like, I might hit you, but come over here and take a picture with me. But I looked at that and I said, okay, he's going to be just fine. He's going to be just fine.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Like I said, I give you credit to my success because I struggled and we talked and I was like, no, he's right. I need to work on this. I need to do that. And we talked off and on stage and I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? And you share knowledge from the era, clothing. We went down rabbit holes talking about the shoe covers, the spazzes, and I had no idea. And then even my watch, hey, that's somewhat period accurate. And just I loved everything you did for the zone, but more importantly, I love everything you did for me personally.
Well, thank you for saying so. One of the things that was important to me in that zone, and hopefully whether I'm back there or not, period language. I enjoy it when my crew uses words that maybe people don't understand. But there's so much from the time. And, I will never forget. I don't know if you saw this or not. There was a woman she's in her wheelchair. She's in her 80s. And she's sitting there with this big smile watching all the people interact. And some of the talent was coming up and interacting. And she came up to me and she said, I haven't heard words like that since I was a little girl. And I'm like, exactly.
My to-go-to was maroon.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
And then you shared to us the meaning behind it. I think I just picked it up from Merry Melodies, Looney Tunes.
Yeah, Looney Tunes.
So whenever they roasted someone or made fun of them or scared them, I would yell, "What a maroon!" I would just yell it out, just in the distance so people would hear it. Just the different things. And but again, it wasn't for you. Just your speeches backstage, pulling us off to the side and just having personal and private conversations. Not only motivation, but just days that needed uplifting, particularly last year, which was a rough season, but things are better now.
Good.
You got me through a lot, and I thank you for that.
It was my pleasure.
Appreciate it. So, enough catering to your ego. So let's
No, keep it up.
What are your plans for haunt season this year? I mean, obviously you can't share what you're doing just yet, but well, in general, the business, working haunt.
Yeah, well, I'll be at haunt, and I actually, and I can tell you this, I don't know where I'll be, but hopefully it'll be somewhere that will be the right fit for me, and I'm not worried about that because the right fit for me is it's kind of what you make it.
True.
I will be working ghost tours on Tuesdays, and we'll be at 6740, so that'll be real fun. And then at Pio Pico's Mansion on Saturday, October 11th. So I'll be very, very busy, and I'll be doing both things, but I look forward to it.
Interesting. So normally before I end every episode, I have a kind of a fantasy question for each guest. So what it is, a portal opens up here in my condo. You have an opportunity to go back to any time or place, fictional or non-fictional, to do a ghost or paranormal investigation. Where would it be and why?
All right. So, in Whittier, and you have to come on my ghost tour to hear the whole story, but this is the tease. There was a horrible murder. And when I say horrible murder, I mean an axe was used. And it was on children and a woman, and they were also dismembered. So this is as bad as it gets. The murder was unsolved. The murder reappeared in the state of Texas a number of years later, where he did it again, and that's where he was caught. And eventually, the bones of those people were dug up, and the mystery was solved as to what happened to them. That house where it took place in was eventually torn down. There's a condo there now. I believe that house had to have been haunted.
Definitely.
With what had happened. The city did not talk about what had happened, so people that would have lived in the house probably didn't know. But if I were to go back, I would love to investigate the home before it was torn down to verify if a haunting did take place, because with something so bad as that, there had to be some energy left behind.
Now, metaphorically, would you include this home into one of your tours?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you got to.
Absolutely. No, I know right where it is, and just here's kind of a funny story. I did reach out to the owners of the property, and they actually didn't know about it because the city, the museum eventually did tell them, but I asked if they had anything that they wanted to share with me. And they sent me an email back and said they had no comments. I eventually did track somebody down that had lived in the condo, and they told me that they always felt that there was something there. And I'm like, well, like screams or footsteps or anything? They're like, no, there's just an unhappy vibe, and that kind of makes sense.
Just a heaviness probably in the air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for something as terrible as that.
Okay. Interesting. I like your answer. Anything you would like to plug?
Well, I hope you guys will check out Haunted Whittier on Instagram, or just Google us. I'd love to have some of your listeners on my tours, any of them. And if you're looking for a World War I and World War II helmet, anything even into Vietnam, check out Alexander & Sons Restoration. I'm easy to find on the net, and hopefully we can send some neat helmets your direction.
Again, guys, I will put those links in the description of this episode. I think that's it. Thank you, sir. You've been a... even though I'm older than you, you've been a father figure. You've been, I think, I'm a year older than you too.
Well, you're close to my age.
Yeah.
I'm 47.
I'm 49.
All right.
So it's like the reverse father figure. There we go. You've been a perfect gentleman.
Well, thank you.
You've got me through a lot, and we talked personally and privately, and I appreciate who you are.
Well, before we close, if I can stroke your ego a little bit, you have always made my job easy when you've worked for me, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, because not everybody does.
I always wanted to be the least of your problems.
and you have been.
Thank you, sir. Well, thank you for coming on, sharing your stories, and you're a good man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a good one.
You're listening
Well, that was fun.
to the Creepcast.
Yes, sir.
You've once again barely escaped the clutches of the Creepcast with Rick Creeper. Next time, you may not be so lucky. To find out more about the Creepcast and Rick Creeper, follow Rick on Instagram at RickCreeper11 Until next time, be sure to keep that lantern light burning. You never know what could be lurking out there in the dark.